Hey there, you're listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion. Here's your host, RJ Carbone.
Soto, a high fly ball to center. Thomas backing up. Thomas at the track. And Juan Soto! DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Knicks take a
Take this time to apologize to absolutely nobody.
At the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! Mr. Nova.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied.
You shook up the world again.
I did it again. But God did it, man. I really just had
To Brunson running away. Oh my! He has been the best player to put on that uniform.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk all we want about how it's early and the ups and downs, and it's kind of getting tiresome. As I've been saying recently, even during some of these wins, I can't shake the feeling, man. It's been here from the start after that Boston game, opening night. I just haven't been able to shake the feeling. There's this vision inside my head where I think it just becomes a lost season for this Knicks team. I think it's going to be a year where they struggle all year to consistently put things together. And I just don't know if this year is going to be the one where they do it. I've had this feeling all season. We are almost a quarter of the way through. A few more games and we will be 25% through the season. So it's kind of getting late early. The Knicks are 10-8. They're 10-8 overall in a weak Eastern Conference. That's pretty revolting. They went 2-2 out west. It's just for a team that went out and traded all these assets, and they brought in these contracts. They're barely underneath the second apron. I don't know, man. I don't feel it this year, and I've been saying this. It's just my personal opinion. It's not really reacting on the loss. I don't think this is a Knicks team that's capable of winning a championship. I don't think they're a title contender. I think this is going to be a season where, again, they consistently struggle to find a way, and they end somewhere definitely outside the top four and maybe even a play-in team. I think it's going to be a 500-ish season for them, give or take. That's just what I feel. I've seen enough to where I can look at this roster construct and be like, yeah, it makes sense to say something like that. I'm not doing the whole super rational, super patient approach. I'm just going to say what's on the top of my mind, and yeah. Dallas was missing 3 rotation players last night. Luka Doncic, one of them. Didn't matter. The Knicks had their usual 8-man rotation for the time being, and it was the same starting 5, and Tibbs ran them heavy too, even at the end of the game, which, of course, is going to bother the people who care about rest. Same 3-man bench, but Deuce McBride only got 15 minutes. I'm assuming they're taking it slow off the injury with the knee. That's going to be something that he's going to have to manage. He said that. That's great. Yeah, this was an awful game from the start. The Knicks were awful from the get-go. The offense was terrifyingly bad. The only source of offense early on was they got to the free throw line a bunch late in the first quarter, and Towns got some post touches late. But it was 28-15 Dallas after one. Second quarter comes, they finally knock down their first three. But they're still down 60-38 by halftime. Second half, the Knicks picked it up offensively. In the third quarter, they showed you some life where Towns, Brunson, Josh Hart were carrying the workload. The Knicks cut the deficit to 13 points with about 5 minutes and change in the third period. That was the closest it really got. Fourth quarter comes, and it was just a pathetic shit show. They turned it off. You know, they erupted offensively, but so did the Mavericks. You know, Brunson was the Knick who was showing the most balls, but the Knick defense was just so disturbing. And you mix in some good shot making from Dallas. And you could tell me there was some good half-court defense in this game from the Knicks, but at the end of the day, you look up, and again, they give up 129 points. They lose 129-114. Dallas had 4 guys with 20. Najee Marshall, 24 points. Kyrie Irving, 23 points. Spencer Dinwiddie, 21 points. Quentin Grimes, how about that one? 21. Brunson finishes with 37. Towns, 25 and 14. Mikal Bridges, 20 points. Don't care, buddy. Get it together. Anunoby, 8 points, 15 field goals. Shot 20%. 0 for 8 from 3. He had a shot clock violation early. He missed an easy dunk. So he goes for a 40 ball 2 nights ago. But he has nothing to show for last night. And I can't blame him. It's going to happen. But it was an ugly game. The Knicks lacked discipline. They lacked crispness overall. I mean, you had guys falling down left and right. A couple air balls. They had that one possession in the first half where they completely fell asleep on a loose ball. A couple times, really, where they allowed offensive rebounds and led to a basket. So they lose by 15. And, you know, this offense has been great all year. We've given it praise all year. But I've also said the one thing I want to see is how they respond to defenses that are very switchable, right? Teams with wingspan who can switch all continue to give the Knicks problems. We saw it opening night against Boston. We saw it when they played Cleveland. And we saw it definitely when they played the Houston Rockets. That's a legitimate problem. And so it had been a while since the Knicks had opposed the switch defense. You know, they played the Nets a couple weeks ago, but that's not great defense. But they run into Dallas last night, who were without Luka, so they were switching a lot more. You know, Derek Lively, excellent switch big. You know, and they got size in that front court. PJ Washington, Najee Marshall. They have a solid switch defense. And I think we brought that up entering this West Coast trip. You know, at the end of our show, we said, well, they have a pretty solid defense. And they showed it. And that's the problem. Switch defenses consistently are able to take away the Knicks' advantage creation and force the Knicks to have to be decisive if they want to create advantages. That's all. That's what it's all about. But Dallas did a very nice job shutting them down. They slowed down the Knicks offense. They limited ball movement. I didn't think the Knicks were using enough ball reversal to hit the second side, keep them in rotation. They limited their off-ball movement. The Knicks were certainly not moving well enough in cuts, which that's a big way to exploit a switch defense is you got to cut off the ball and you find your back cutters. You also got to knock down your threes. That's a big, like you're not gonna beat a switch defense if your 3-point attempts are not being generated and cashed in on. And the Dallas Mavericks limited the number of three-point looks the Knicks got up. They only took 29 threes. Just 29 because they weren't dropping. But they need to keep shooting. I know the old schoolers don't want to hear that. Take it to the hoop. But, this needs to be their identity. If you're getting good looks, keep firing. Now, they weren't always getting good looks last night. But, again, they have to cut off the ball. They have to hit the second side. They have to work on those things when they run into a switch defense. Sometimes the Knicks get gun shy from three. When they're not falling those threes, there are times where they get a little scared and then they start attacking the hoop because that's where their roots are. Under, the last several years under Tibbs, they've been a team that likes to go to the basket. So they're still trying to get used to the perimeter. But, I also thought the Knicks should have mixed in some down screens and step-up screens up top to force Dallas into a drop, especially when Jericho was on the floor since he's not a shooting threat. Force them to make quick decisions and revert to a drop coverage. Mix in some slips to counter that switch because that's how you separate the defense. That's how you cause sudden miscommunication. Slip the screen, roll into space. Separate the defense from the ball handler. But you didn't really see any of that. The Knicks looked completely lost. They looked like they didn't know how to attack the switch. It was do we feed Towns on a small? You're seeing here and there how he's had some iffy history when he posts smalls off a switch. That's been something that's not been a total strength of him in the past. Do we let Brunson target the big? At the same time, you don't want to overdo the mismatch hunting, so they were kind of struggling to find that balance. And this is all it's funny. It's kind of ironic because the Knicks' struggles against switch defenses are kind of why I want the Knicks to switch pick and roll themselves. I know, stop me if you've heard this before. I've been saying this all year. How often do I got to keep hammering it? But yeah, the Knicks gave up 129 points. They scored 114, an average amount, but they continue to give up boatloads of points. And, early in the season, it was getting beat and drop. Last couple weeks, they've been getting beat off the hedge. Last night, they went back to a drop coverage, primarily. Didn't really work, But I think we're getting to a point now where we have to start seeing another adjustment. Why revert back to a drop? Why not try switching? Especially against a team like Dallas. I think the Knicks have to switch because there are a number of reasons why. But it's the best way to negate creation advantage. Like I said at the top, in today's NBA, every offense has multiple ball handlers who can apply pressure. Switching can negate that. It simplifies things. It helps you stay in front. Less rotation, less miscommunication, more cohesiveness. It limits the driving lanes because you don't have to worry about staying attached and fighting over the top. Mikal Bridges. Good God. If you're in drop coverage, well, if Mikal's beat at the point of attack and drop, now Towns is forced to defend too, and the Knicks are forced to rotate wing help off the corners. If you're in a hedge, and again, if Mikal's struggling to stay attached, when Towns recovers to the roll off the hedge, now the guard's got Mikal behind his hips and an open lane in front of him because Towns is back on the roll. And if you're hedging and Towns isn't aggressive enough, which we've seen, when he comes to the level and he's not totally active, whether it be his stance, his hands, instincts and awareness, whatever it is fundamentally, well, now the guard's going to make the easy pocket pass or he's going to beat Towns on the edge. You know, last night, Mikal Bridges didn't love the defense, continued to struggle staying attached, both off the screen and in isolation, just behind the hips. The end of the second quarter, there was like 5 seconds left. Kyrie gets from center court to the basket in 5 seconds because Mikal is just very slow to stay in front. Early in the third quarter, to start the second half, Kyrie, him and Lively run some form of a pistol set. They DHO into a pick and roll. Mikal loses Kyrie off the ball, loses him around the screen, and now Kyrie gets a baseline jumper in front of Cat's face. So I mostly want to switch because it gets Mikal Bridges off the point of attack. He doesn't have to worry about, I should say, fighting over the screen. But Towns too. I don't love Towns when he's in drop at the 5 because, when he goes up against a good offense, they're going to force him to move. They're going to force him to move around, to navigate, to come up, defend in space, defend quicker players, recover. I don't love his positioning at times. He's very easy to get by. There's no resistance when he's got to defend a driving lane. So, yeah, I think it's time we start seeing the Knicks switch. It'll help create turnovers and limit threes. Because the higher up you are on the floor, with your back to the basket and your face looking at the ball handler, now the offense is forced to adjust a lot quicker with less time and less space. You're limiting things like relocation because the defense stays attached when you're switching. In a system like Tibbs, you're conserving energy because you're not fighting over the top all the time and worrying about those ball screens. That's basically what a switch is. You don't have to worry about the ball screen. It's exactly what it is. They've got the size advantage where they can put wingspan on a small. Even Towns has shown that he's capable when he's on an island at times in certain matchups, simply because he's got length. They've got some personnel. They've got a ton of wings and bigs with quick feet and long arms. So they're all capable of hedging, recovering, but switching too. This idea that they don't have personnel to do it, I think is crazy. Yes, they have, they've got Jericho Sims. They've got OG Anunoby. They've got Mikal. They've got Josh Hart, Deuce McBride, Campaign, Precious Achua when he returns, whatever the fuck that'll be. Thought this guy was supposed to be back already. But yeah, what the Knicks are really worried about, why they're so reluctant to switch all, it's clearly because of the 2 matchup disadvantages. Right? Brunson's very tiny. Tibbs is afraid of leaving him on a big like Miles Turner or a big wing like Jason Tatum. And Towns is not great on his feet, and he's fundamentally flawed. So he's afraid of leaving him on a small, like a Donovan Mitchell or insert screen and roll guard here. And both of those guys are going to be on the floor 35 plus minutes a night. So do you want to consistently be left with that mismatch? Right? Like I always think back to last postseason against Philly, against Indiana, those Brunson mismatches hurt. Right? And I'm sure some of it is you want Josh Hart in his natural role as opposed to having him on the back line in the dunker. With Towns coming up front in a more aggressive scheme. Hart's a great rebounder, but he's best when he's flying in from the perimeter. It's a different story when he's going to have to box and get into position against bigger bodies. So I think that's those are kind of the last couple things those are the two reasons why I think Tibbs is so hesitant to switch up and go to a switch. No pun intended. Like we've seen him adjust. You know, he started the season in drop. He went to a hedge. He reverted back to drop last night. He's mixed in some switching during the course of all of it. I don't know if we're kind of running out of solutions. Like, you can try Anunoby at the 5. Defending 5s is what I mean. Like, you know, he's your most versatile wing. He gives you excellent rim protection if he's in a drop. He's got the wingspan to close out, to contest from a drop. He's got great feet, so he can slide over. He can recover if he hedges. But the Knicks, and I don't blame them for this, they really, really like OG in backside help, in that low man help role. That's where OG is best defensively, from the weak side. You know, again, with these returning players, Precious in particular, you can try to go to Towns at the 4 and play these double post lineups. I obviously don't love it. I never have loved it. I've made this known for a while now. You shouldn't love it either, but the defense will probably improve. You know, if you do it sparingly against the right matchups, enough to shave off 5 or 6 points per game, maybe it works. You know, but the downside to that is it takes away offense. It removes the big off of Towns. It's going to clog up the paint. It's going to kill a little bit of spacing. The point of the trade was to have that spacing. I think you just have to hope Mikal Bridges improves. He's supposed to be a good point of attack wing. He hasn't been that. If he improves, this defense is much better. And remember, the goal is to become a league average defense, because you've got a top 3 offense in an era where offense is king. But right now, you've got 3 weak points in your starting 5. You know, and if Mikal Bridges isn't giving you efficient offense, I know he had a good night last night, but do you start thinking about putting Deuce out there? Because Deuce is your best point of attack defender, to be honest. I'm not going to get into all that because that's a whole mess with optics and it's going to look bad and everything, but I don't know. What else is left to do? Do you stagger Brunson and Towns? I mean, the Knicks have done that, right? They stagger them a lot. The Knicks defense this year is a lot better when it's just Brunson out there, and it's a lot worse when it's Brunson and Towns together. So he's tried staggering them a lot. He does that most of the game. You know, I think at worst case, we might get to a point where we're in early 2025 and it's gotten so bad where we're talking about having to move one of our bigs and trade for a spacing big that has some rim protection in him. This way you can get best of both worlds. Now, the few problems with that is, again, your financial situation with the tax aprons, not great. You know, it depends who you have to get. And basketball-wise, even with a 2-way spacing big, it's still 2 bigs out there. So the opposing big is going to be off of Towns, and he's going to be on whoever the 5 is. You know, if you're hiding Towns on a low usage wing, this is the other way around. If we're going to defense, if you're hiding Towns on a low usage wing because you have 2 bigs, now Brunson can't be hidden. So that's another solution that can get exposed. So I just think they need to try switching pick and roll. That's it. I just try it. Try it out. I'm not saying it's going to fix shit, okay? Because their defense is really bad. But it's worth trying at this point because you are 18 games into your season and you're allowing 125, 130 points a night. And I'm tired of it, quite frankly. I think they should just attempt to go to a switch all. See what it looks like. You got a very weak schedule coming up. See what it looks like. We're going to head to break, get back, and we'll talk about the two best Knicks of the night. When we return, stay with us.
Hey there, thanks for listening in so far. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much. You can follow us on social media as well. On Instagram, we're at BD4Pod and at Rob J. Carbone. On X, we're at BD4Pod and at RJCBD4. And on Facebook, we're BD4. If you're interested in our website, just go to www.bd4blog.com. You can subscribe to our blog on there right on the front page. Just like on the podcast, we cover Yankees, Knicks, and MMA. Also on our website are the links to the different platforms for the podcast. Thanks so much.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to episode 751. The Knicks feel like a playing team. Not going to lie to you. 129 and 114 last night in Dallas. Two positives were, one, Jalen Brunson.
Bing bang.
I thought Jalen Brunson last night showed some balls. He was the only Knick with the knack, as Clyde likes to say. 37 points, 7 assists, 2 steals. He shot 14 for 21 from the floor. He was 14 of 18 from 2. That's nice to see. And he was 9 out of 10 at the free throw line. Continues his very strong season. He now has 8 game balls on the year. The season numbers, if I can pull them back up here, if you're watching the video format of the podcast, are 26 points per game here on the screen, 8 assists per game, 1 steal per game, 49% shooting, 40% three-point shooting, 85% at the free throw line. Man, I've been wanting him to become a 50-40-90 guy for the longest time. He's so close, and I think that'd be super impressive for a guy who's 6 feet tall on a good day. You know, every year with the Knicks, he's flirted with that. And that's impressive given his volume has gone up and the shot diet has changed. Very impressive. So Jalen Brunson continues to be good. He went off in that fourth quarter, didn't miss a single shot. Not going to lie, I did turn the game off in the final minutes. But he was great. He was great. So Jalen Brunson from the starting unit was the best Knick. Go to the bench. Didn't get much from the bench. But I thought Jericho Sims was pretty good. If you're watching the video format of the podcast, the graphics aren't amazing. Put up a whopping 1 point, 1 rebound in 13 minutes. But he, 2 steals, a block, played 13 minutes. So, I thought his impact was good. The offensive rebound came off the Brunson missed free throw in the first half. I thought he was great at the basket defensively, especially in the second half. Had some nice moments. Continues to be the versatile big wing defender for the Knicks. So that's all you're asking. By time. It's going to be interesting when Precious gets back. Where we go with Sims. Does Tibbs expand it to a 9? Or does he just use Precious as that backup big? I think that's what we're ultimately going to see. I think he's going to stick with 8. But, it's Tom Thibodeau. I wouldn't be shocked if he went to Jericho in certain lineups just to have versatility. But I think for the most part, you're going to see 8 men. But that's it. That's it. Up next for the Knicks, what do we got? Up next, we have the Charlotte Hornets. They have to get their shit together. And if you're an optimist, this is the big opportunity for the Knicks to get their shit together with a very, 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 3 varies, week schedule ahead to close out the year. Tomorrow, you wrap up your road trip in Charlotte. It's a matinee, 12 p.m. Cup game. Then you have a 4-game homestand where you're playing the Pelicans, the Magic, the Hornets again, and the Pistons. So, Orlando's the only toss-up there. It's also a Cup game. Then you're going on the road for 3 games. Toronto, Minnesota, New Orleans again. And then you got 2 games back at the Garden. Toronto again and San Antonio. And then you wrap up the month of December with a 3-game road trip where you go into Orlando and then you go into DC to play the Wizards twice in a row. So you look at that stretch of games there to close out the year from now. Only 2 of those teams, I believe, are above 500. And that's Orlando, who you play twice, and San Antonio. The Knicks need to aim for, 13 games? They need to aim for, at worst, in my opinion here, 9-4. To be honest, I'd like to see 10-3. Get hot. You got to start cleaning some shit up. NBA Cup bullshit aside, because that's going to affect the schedule and there'll be some games added in there, but those 13, 14 games, 13 games, go 10-3. Time to get hot. 9-4 I can live with. Let's go. Let's go. I'm over it, man. I'm over it. There's no consistency here. Let's get to our final break, get back, wrap this up. Stay with us. Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born.
Thanks for listening to BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA, Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion.
All right, let's get right into it. Our trivia question for this episode. What is Jalen Brunson's record in 3 games against the Mavericks since leaving? What is Jalen Brunson's record in 3 games against the Mavericks since leaving? All right, so let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode, folks. That is all we got. The Knicks lose big time. 129-114 in Dallas to wrap up the West Coast trip. One more game on the road tomorrow afternoon. But that's it for episode 751. I appreciate very much all of you tuning in and listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, whatever platform you're on. I do appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you all enjoy the day with your families. And hope you guys listen to this podcast during dinner. Right? That's what you'll be doing. Definitely be doing that. Thank you all. No, I appreciate it. Very thankful for that. So I'll see you in 752. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you. And we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees and go Knicks.